Hi guys, and welcome to today's video, which is 21 names inspired by ancient Egypt. Now, instead of going straight through a list of names, I thought I'd tell you some stories of the gods, and the names will pop up along the way. Now, some of the pronunciation may be slightly off, but this is because so many people have different pronunciations and different spellings for these names, so to be fair, we can't really be 100% sure either way. Anyway, I've always been so fascinated with ancient Egypt ever since I can remember, and funnily enough, this year I had a DNA test done to look at my ancestry, and turns out I am actually a small part North African, with a large part of that originating from countries around the Red Sea, which kinda looks like there's a small chance my ancestors could be from Egypt, which doesn't really surprise me because, to be honest, a lot of my family kind of look like they could be from around the Mediterranean countries, so it all kind of makes sense. Anyway, enough of me, let's look at the name. We're going to start off with Ra. So, ancient Egyptians believed that Ra was the sun god, and every day he would sail across the sky in his boat. It was believed that every night Ra was swallowed up by his mother, Nut, who, it is spelt nuts. Some people say nuit. I think that's night for French. Some people say nut. I don't think anyone says nut. That doesn't sound very, not for a goddess anyway. So you could say nut for this. So anyway, he was swallowed up by his mother, Nut, and reborn the next morning. Nut was a sky goddess and is referred to as both the mother and the granddaughter of the creator god Ra. Also sometimes referred to Atum and Atum Ra. So back to Ra for a second. During the day, as he travelled through the sky, he would have fights with his main enemy, an evil serpent called Apep. Some people say Apepi. In some ancient stories, Ra transformed into a cat called Mo. You get the Egyptian cats called Egyptian Mo. I think this is because cats go meow. That's my thought behind this. Anyway, Ra would transform into a cat called Meow and defeat Apep, hence why cats are so highly regarded in ancient Egypt. Something else that was important to the Egyptians was a sacred symbol of the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life was located on Ra's sun temple in Heliopolis and was the seat of the Bennu bird, which was one of the most important religious symbols in ancient Egypt, symbolising resurrection and the rising sun. The Bennu bird was believed to be the soul of Ra. It's often depicted as a heron, but is referred to as a phoenix. Now, speaking of mythological creatures in ancient Egypt, we must now look at demons. These were more powerful than humans, but not as powerful as the gods. The most infamous one, besides Apep, was Amit. Now, some people will say Amit, but if I say that, I just lose my accent. It's like Amit. So I'm just going to say Amit for now, but you have to go on that one, whichever you find best for you. Now, Amit had the head of a crocodile, the front half of her body was a lioness, so some people say it's a leopard, and the back half was a hippo. She was known as the devourer of the dead and the eater of the hearts. Now, Amit lived in the Egyptian underworld in the Hall of Two Truths. Now, in that hall, there was Anubis, who is known as a protector of the dead and is usually associated with mummification. Well, Anubis would weigh the heart of a person against a feather of Mahat, the goddess of truth, justice, and harmony. If that heart was not honest and pure, Amit would devour it. Therefore, the person being judged would not be able to continue his or her journey to Osiris and immortality. Osiris was one of the most important gods since he was the first mythological king of Egypt. However, he was killed by his brother Set, sometimes spelt like Seth, but apparently pronounced Set. He was brought back to life by his wife Isis, whose name I used to adore. Little bit tricky nowadays, and he went on to become the ruler of the underworld and to judge the dead. Now, Isis and Osiris had a son called Horus, and Horus was a god of the sky and a divine protector of kings. He had many wars against his uncle Set, who eventually he defeated, so he then became the king of Egypt. I kind of feel like Disney ripped off this story and made The Lion King with this, didn't they? Like, seriously. Yeah. Now, we've had quite a few names, but the next few, it's going to be like a quick fire round. I'm going to say lots of names minus the big story. So the first name we have is Scarab. Scarab beetles were popular amulets in ancient Egypt. Then we have Delta. So this is a region of the land where the Nile River splits into several branches before emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. Then we have Nefertiti. I love this name. One of the most mysterious and powerful women in ancient Egypt. Of course, the list wouldn't be complete without Cleopatra. She was actually Cleopatra the 7th. I think people forget there were so many, but she's definitely the most famous one. And she apparently had a child with Julius Caesar. Tutankhamun is our next name, obviously very famous, often referred to as King Tut. He was an Egyptian pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Happy is our final name today. This is a god who was androgynous in appearance, and I believe the name is pretty neutral either way. It was believed that he caused the Nile to overflow each year, allowing the soil in the surrounding areas to become extremely fertile, because we must not forget that around the times the ancient Egyptians really ruled, the land was rich in vegetation. The crops would grow, animals would graze, and it was thought that the downfall of the ancient Egyptians was due to the land becoming barren and kind of looking like it does today. So, I think that part of the story is still open to debate, but it's pretty interesting how the landscapes have really changed. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I've genuinely enjoyed making this list. Hopefully you can see my passion for ancient Egypt, and I definitely could make another list. So, that might be a future video. One thing I'm going to leave you with, though, that's pretty mind-boggling about all of this, is, did you know Cleopatra actually lived closer to the creation of the iPhone than she did to the construction of the pyramids? Mind blown. Mind blown. It's crazy. It's crazy actually how long they ruled for as well. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got some nice names out of it, and thank you very much for watching.